In silence, something stirs within, a quiet call, a whispered hymn. It bids you rise, through shadows stay, and nudges softly, find your way. The bud resists, afraid to show, the tender heart it hides below. But, step by step, it breaks the mold, the bloom emerges, brave and bold. I hate Sonetto. She is so blind to following the Foundation's rules that if they gave her the order to kill the Arcanist, she would do so without question. She is like an oppressed person in Nazism who kills and hunts her own kind. At the beginning, I would agree with this take, but now that has changed. In my eyes, Sonetto is just a flower that has yet to blossom. Sonetto is the Foundation's prized possession, the Foundation's vessel. Someone who was indoctrinated to drink, eat, and breathe the Foundation's teachings. She has no moral compass of her own. Her cause is the Foundation's cause. Every action she takes is an extension of the Foundation's will. Even with her voice, you can barely hear Sonetto. But, just like everyone, Sonetto's time with Vertin was her spring. Our springtime is not always radiant. Thus, our flowers will bloom, embracing our individual wounds and pain. Our flowers may not be fragrant, our flowers may not be beautiful, but among all the flowers, they will be the loveliest. From the beginning of our story in verse 1999, Sonetto shows herself to be a I will always follow the textbook and the textbook is always right kind of person. Sonetto, Vertin, and a group of Foundation staff were tasked with registering Regulus. However, she resisted and took some of them hostage. At the current time in the story, Regulus is being hunted by Manus Vindictae. When discussing the mission's details with Vertin, even she mentions how Sonetto is a careful reader. She isn't one to miss a single detail. What you also notice is Sonetto's love and respect for Vertin. When receiving praise, it's all thanks to Timekeeper. Regulus manages to escape, and while Vertin and Sonetto go around looking for her, this conversation happens.
Do you like the world outside, Sonetto?
No, I'm just curious. I'll throw it away when I've finished. Please don't think too much of it.
Vertin asks Sonetto if she likes the world outside. This is because Sonetto saw a boy selling newspapers, and she was really excited to get one. However, before approaching Vertin, Sonetto puts away the newspaper carefully and runs towards the cafe while forcing herself to calm down. And when she is asked about it, she tells Vertin that she will throw it away later. She carefully placed the newspaper away, but when she was asked about it, it seemed like nothing more than trash. After finding Regulus and losing her again, it starts raining. The storm is coming. Vertin tells Sonetto to head back before it's too late, but Sonetto insists on continuing to look for Regulus. It's the same determined face. She puts it on before every exam. Sonetto has a fear of failing because every failure is failing the Foundation, since the Foundation's cause is her cause. Vertin ends up finding Regulus before Sonetto. When Sonetto is approaching them, Vertin gives Regulus a disguise. Sonetto asks if Vertin has seen anything, and Vertin shakes her head. My mission failed. Sonetto is afraid of failing. She takes each mission like an exam, something she must complete because her success is the success for the Foundation's noble cause. But even when faced with this devastation, she thanks Timekeeper for her help. Some people take this as Vertin not trusting Sonetto, but let's take a look backwards. As we all know, Sonetto is the top student in her class. She knows the answer to every question and can answer quickly. When leaving the classroom, she sees Vertin. However, Sonetto wants to take another route. She knows that Vertin is nothing but trouble. Vertin calls for Sonetto, and she walks over to her. Vertin excitedly shows Sonetto the frog she caught outside the school's gate. Sonetto, however, only reminds Vertin that she was given a timeout. She reminds Vertin of the 2 rules: not to pay much attention to affairs outside the school. She also asks Vertin not to bring her those things anymore. She's unable to understand why Vertin does these things because they are complete opposites. Vertin skips class and involves herself in things she's not supposed to. Sonetto knows the student handbook from cover to cover. To Sonetto, her purpose for living is to die for the Foundation. For Vertin, she doesn't understand why her purpose should be coming from the textbook. The Foundation made Sonetto afraid of pebbles and frogs, but not of death. She believes that the student handbook is protecting her from the regrets of the outside world. Because when you live, you lose things around you until you die. So the handbook gives you a reason to live and die without regrets. Because if you are focused solely on the cause, you won't have any regrets. In the game, President Vertin is currently in a coma. Vertin knows that there is no life without regret, and even when you follow the student handbook, you still have things to lose. During Chapter 3, Vertin is on a mission to see the outside world with the other kids in her class. During this, Sonetto continually warns Vertin not to go against the handbook. She will even report Vertin if she does. At the parade ceremony, Vertin and 20 other children sing a song that came from the back of a pamphlet, a revised version of the school song with Manus Vindictae propaganda, which shocks the whole faculty.
What are you singing?
When Sonetto is ordered to stop them, she hesitates. Vertin then pleads with the principal to let the students be themselves. This is something that Sonetto is not. This is something that the Foundation doesn't allow. In retaliation, the children are sprayed with potions, tear gas, and attacked with non-lethal weapons. In front of Sonetto's eyes, Vertin was shot in the face by a non-lethal weapon, putting her into a coma. You could see in Sonetto's eyes that even if you follow the handbook, it doesn't change the way the world reacts around you. She watched as Vertin was shot in the face with tear gas that was supposed to go off above the children. This was her first regret. Us going through this challenging period is proof that we're trying our best to bloom. So do what's best for yourself, not others, and help your personal flower flourish. During Sonetto's conversation, she says this:
The outside world is very different from what I thought.
She realizes that the outside world isn't the hellscape that the Foundation made it out to be. Sonetto discusses with Vertin about historical intel in a capsule that has a faint smell of oranges. Hint hint, it's most likely from Arcana/Schneider. A mission to prevent a massacre of the Arcanists that will happen in less than a week. Sonetto mentions how this task may not conflict with the Foundation's purpose. She did her best to rationalize this mission in terms of the Foundation's cause. She finds ways to make it benefit them. In the middle of their mission, a woman named Schneider is gunning down local gangsters who discriminate against Arcanists before they can even enact their plan. Sonetto leaves them with evidence about a meeting happening at the Walden Hotel in downtown Chicago. In the woods on the way to the Walden Hotel, Team Timekeeper is attacked by ghost-like monsters, so Sonetto decides to cover the rest of the team so they can escape. Sonetto catches a ride from a rich potion-making Arcanist named Sotheby when she accidentally sparks her driver to crash into the rear wall of the hotel, uncovering an underground passage in the process. The whole time Sonetto is worried about Vertin, who's inside the speakeasy. The crew all make it inside the Walden to see the leaders of Manus Vindictae, a woman named Arcana and a man named Forget-Me-Not, accelerating the Great Depression to make the storm arrive sooner. Manus Vindictae uses the panic among the wealthy socialites in attendance to convince them to wear masks that will protect them from the storm, but turn them into mindless enslaved people. Trying to escape, they run into Schneider, who's rescuing her sister Maria. Without even trying to rationalize the situation, Sonetto attacks Schneider. Attack first, ask questions later. Manus was feeding Maria the truth serum for pretending to be an Arcanist, and Schneider was getting her back. Once Sonetto hears that they are sisters, she feels remorse. Following this, Schneider tried to help Maria spit out the serum. Sotheby and the St. Pavlov Arcanists try to lead the innocents to safety before they are caught in the fight, but end up running into Druvis III, who is working with Manus Vindictae. Sotheby manages to escape the Walden with most of the group, except for Vertin and Schneider. Arcana insists that Vertin join the group. Arcana traps Vertin in a dream world where she plays with Schneider, but does not realize she is shooting the real Schneider multiple times with her own gun. Meanwhile, Sotheby returns to her mansion, only to find it's strangely quiet. Her butler, Mr. Carson, prepares dinner for the group, but does not seem to realize that the food he prepared is inedible gold, jewels, and dollar bills. While people across the Chicago area are reportedly coming down with a similar sickness brought about by the coming storm. Back at the Walden, Vertin convinces Juvis III to help them escape, along with a still-living Schneider, who barely survived the gunshots from her heart being on the opposite side of her chest. The two of them head to a nearby charred forest, as does Sonetto's group, having received word from Madame Z at the Foundation that supplies are being routed to a refugee camp at that spot. When Sonetto meets up with Vertin and Schneider, Sonetto apologizes for leaving Vertin behind. This is to the point where Vertin needs to tell Sonetto to calm down because she's trembling. This is her second regret. Vertin leads her friends in escaping the SPDM itself, devising a plan to evade the guards and teachers and reach the outside world. However, Vertin is unaware that she is playing into the hands of Constantine, the director of the St. Pavlov Foundation, who allows her and her friends to reach the outside walls of the SPDM just as the storm hits the area. While escaping, they are ambushed by Lilia. In this moment, Sonetto confronts Lilia, telling her that her job is to eliminate the Olidius on campus, not to attack the students. She defends Vertin from Lilia. Vertin was going to leave, and Sonetto knew it was dangerous. Suppose Sonetto followed the student handbook and ignored Vertin. If she never saw her again, Sonetto would have regrets. Sonetto asks that even if she loses everything she has at the Foundation, will she not be regretful? Vertin replied, saying that she will have no regrets. Sonetto will miss Vertin. However, she did not regret what she did, because she did it for herself. The groups converge on the location as Forget-Me-Not and Arcana herald the coming storm, but are too late to stop Manus Vindictae from accomplishing their goal. Afterwards, the survivors go back to Sotheby's mansion, where Mr. Carson prepares one last supper before the non-Arcanists are vanished by the storm, including Schneider. Vertin is reliving her past under artificial, overseen by her former classmate Mesmer Jr., as Constantine and Madame Z try to figure out how to handle Sonetto and the rest of Vertin's new Arcanist colleagues who came with her in the suitcase. While Druvis, Sotheby, and Regulus actively fight against the Foundation's efforts to control them, Madame Z and Sonetto start waging a shadow war against Constantine to rescue Vertin and give Timekeeper more autonomy from the Foundation, hoping to bring a peaceful resolution. Sonetto speaks at a committee. Constantine then questions her about Vertin. This is where Sonetto is faced with two choices, Vertin or the Foundation, making each question difficult for Sonetto to answer. However, in the end, Sonetto defends Vertin. Because of this deep-rooted conflict, Sonetto goes to Matilda to hopefully help her with her decision. What Sonetto wants versus what the Foundation wants. She felt remorse for not giving Constantine a clear answer, and that may have dug a deeper hole for her friends. Sonetto confesses that a stalemate like that scares her, that by choosing one, she may lose the other. Later, Sonetto is tasked by Madame Z to serve as a witness at a court hearing. The second Sonetto starts overthinking, Madame Z reminds her that this isn't like taking an exam. It's simpler than she thinks. In the face of being told that she was tarnishing the reputation of the Foundation, Sonetto remained calculated and kept to her morals. But even still, Sonetto says she got emotional. This was when she recalled what happened to Schneider. Learning that the Foundation had a part to play in her death shook her more than she ever knew, down to her very core. In the past, Sonetto would have just let Vertin deal with her own issues. However, Vertin is Sonetto's spring. Vertin is the complete opposite of Sonetto. She lets her curiosity lead where Sonetto suppresses it. Vertin, who has always embraced the warmth of spring, the dewy air, the pouring rain, always leaves her feeling both wistful and alive, as if each drop carried a promise of hope. If Sonetto continues to embrace spring, as she continues to shed the cold snow of the Foundation, the warmth of spring gets warmer and warmer. Because she's just like you and me, Sonetto's season changes, and she will continue to change along with it. She will continue to make more friends. She will start to learn more about herself, and one day, she will have her own reason to live. The world was still, and so was I, until spring stirred beneath the sky, a tender warmth, a soft embrace, unfolding me in time and space. The moment stretched, the season sang, and through my roots a rhythm rang. I bloomed in ways I never known, awake at last and fully grown, because to live as a vessel of the Foundation is not to live at all.